What's going on, my gaming pals and gals? My name is Gamessnia, and welcome to the Gamessnia show yet again, where we always look into the past, the present, and the future and decide what type of treatment or punishment they rightfully deserve. So, let's have a little talk about what I like. Not what you like, that will probably be discussed in the comment section, but this is a video on where I'm talking. So, Japan. Japan is one of the many places that I've always been interested in going to, and is still one of the most cultured places in the world in my opinion, and is definitely somewhere where honestly I would love to spend a weekend, because honestly I think it is one of the most cultured places in the entire world. You know, since having like pachinko machines, New Japan Pro Wrestling, one of my favorite wrestling promotions in the entire world, giving us some of the best wrestling ever, and just so many to offer in Japan. There's not like a lot I know about it, but that's only scratching the surface, because I've not known much about Japan, and I've gotten into stuff like anime and all that, and it has just been this growing interest of mine to know about Japan, and being able to visit there would be one of my long life dreams. Now, Japan, what has that got to do with today's video? Well, simply it's got to do with Yakuza. And what are Yakuza exactly? Well, basically, to put it quite simply, an underground mafia that act like thugs and have got all fucking tattoos on their back. Basically, that is the gist of it, of what it is in the real world. Now, as in the video game world, what is Yakuza? Well, but yeah, that's Yakuza for you. A franchise that has went under the radar for far too long, and people may disagree on that, but I'm sorry. Ever since this franchise started, it has not been that well known. But when Yakuza 0 came out, which we're going to be talking about today, it is now considered a famous franchise, and people love it. And people now see this is the thing that's missing in their life, saying, oh, this is so amazing. The over-the-topness, the seriousness, but yet the amazing story to it and all. And honestly, it's considered one of my favorite franchises of all time right now. But why is that exactly? Well, play the entire franchise to find out. But today, of course, we're going to be talking about the prequel, the start to all the Yakuza franchise. And we're going to find out how Kiru Kazuma became the Dragon of Dojima and other things, and how this set up future events for the whole of the Yakuza franchise. So, Yakuza 0, let's get right into this. It's 1988, and the streets of Japan are busy indeed, with cabarets and Yakuza ruling the streets of it all. But everything is soon about to change when a young man by the name of Kazuma Kiru, working for the Dojima family, which is part of the Yakuza, is framed for assumedly killing a person he beat up to get money from him. He is then framed for murder, but not only is it just a murder that is a trouble, it is in the middle of an era called the Empty Lot, which causes a lot of trouble in the Yakuza's landscape, and it is actually a piece of land that the head of the Dojima family, Sohi Dojima, wants for various reasons. So now, Kazuma Kiru is on the run and aims to leave the Tojo clan, and hopefully clear his name, and ultimately find out the truth to what's truly going on in the streets of Tokyo. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much the first half of the plot I can actually explain in the quickest detail. And yes, I said the very first half of the plot because there's actually a second half to the plot that ties it all together, but it's not until revealed until we get to the second character, obviously, but we're not going to talk about that. Let's talk about Kazuma Kiru. But before today we get into this, I'm just going to be saying this. I'm going to be talking about this game with spoilers attached, and if you don't want to see anything about spoilers or anything like that, I would recommend that you leave this video right now, because I'm going to be laying a lot in this video about spoilers, about just everything that's happening in the game. So if you do not want Yakuza 0 spoiled, I will give you 5 seconds to leave. Gonna leave? You gonna leave? No? Alright then, let's get into this properly. Can I just say that Yakuza 0's intro is easily one of the most badass, most coolest, and one of the most hypest intros I have ever had in a video game. And it has not been seen for something since like Metal Gear Solid, honestly, which is one of my favorite franchises. And now Yakuza is here doing it too. And honestly, I've got to say that I wouldn't have been hyped up as this game if it wasn't for the intro. I mean, it just gets you hyped up with all the compilation and the music as well, and just these sincere moments you see. You say, I'm gonna be playing that, I'm gonna be experiencing this, and fuck, this is gonna be the prequel story. This is gonna be a badass game I'm gonna be playing. And this right here is the intro that managed to do all that. Goosebumps, man. Goosebumps is the word I have to describe that intro every single time, and I swear it only gets better and better the more I watch it. But anyway, now I can actually get fully into the gameplay as I've shown what I needed to show. We need to stop beating around the bush and just slightly get a bit more into the game, as, you know, we have to talk about the game, because the game is what we're going to be talking about, because the game is the game that we're going to be reviewing in this game review. But I feel like a good start of that is the gameplay, of course, because even though it may not be the reason why people love Yakuza in the first place, it is definitely the reason why I love Yakuza. I also love the type of game that it is to start off with, to be honest. Even though I don't know fully what type of genre I can categorize it as, it definitely can be described, in my opinion, as a standard type of free-roaming beat-em-up style of genre. That may come across a bit vague because there's a lot of games that are like that on the market, but I'm saying that truthfully because I feel like that is the type of game it is, even though I don't know what type of genre Yakuza is. But the gameplay is definitely an action-based pack beat-em-up in that style. But it's also an open world type of game like GTA, but not fully like GTA, as people have compared it to a knockoff of GTA. It is not that. Because when I feel like I say type of open world, it's not a big open world, which is why people think it's a knockoff, but really it's its own thing. And the open world may be a little small, but it still feels like it's very explorable, it's very diverse, and it definitely is considered to be called an open world in that element. But alas, the combat of Yakuza. The main reason why I'm invested in Yakuza as a whole and why I keep coming back to the franchise is because of the combat. But what makes the combat so special, you may ask? Well, we're about to find out. So, Yakuza 0's combat? Now, Zero's combat, I feel, is the most diverse and in-depth in the whole Yakuza franchise, as I feel it has more combos, more ways to approach enemies, and much more skill needed to master the combat system as a whole. And this all is thanks to this 4-style combat system, where both protagonists have 3 styles they unlock throughout the game, and a 4th style unlocked throughout a business side story, and all 4 of them have their own unique style of combos, movement, build, and heat actions to pack. But wait a minute, I know what some of you are thinking. Heat actions? You mentioned invested nothing on what they are. Tell us or we'll unsubscribe from your YouTube channel. Well, I'm about to pull a Rise of Skywalker right here and fire so much info at you that you're going to turn to every Japanese thing that ever existed and make you quote the very words that got me into Yakuza.
Nani? 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 お前はもう死んでいる。
Heat actions are special moves that are available when your heat bar has reached a certain level, and the more you fill it up, the more different type of heat moves you can use, and this is a feature that has been in the Yakuza since its inception, and is one of those features in combat that people have loved since that inception. These moves have been known for being so brutal or either really stupid at some points, but regardless of what other people think, hell, other people think they're amazing as well as I do, and I think they are the most satisfying moves to pull off in combat in the Yakuza franchise, and generally is the main reason why I love the combat in these games. But anyway, back to Yakuza's combat styles. I feel like just to give you a good idea on how these styles of fighting differ from others, I feel like I have to describe the styles in the best way I can, but also the quickest. So here we go. Brawl is a medium-paced fighting style, which kind of acts like a basic fighting style in any game with a lot of powerful attacks and does rely on being careful with blocking and dodging a lot, and does require a lot of practice, but does reward you in that element by giving you tons and tons of damage to your enemies, and is a style that requires precision and strategic planning instead of spamming one button continuously. Rush, however, is quite the opposite, as it relies on fast-paced movement with a lot of dodging and blocking, and isn't very defensive a lot, but what it lacks in defense, it makes up for it in quick and punishing combos for pushing back your foes. My favourite style from Kiru, honestly, and honestly it is just a fun as fuck style just to play with. So many good heat actions and just a lot of fun. And the last unlockable style you unlock as Kiru is Beast. And Beast is exactly what it suggests. You are quite simply, reassuredly, a fucking beast. I'm just gonna say that this style is way too OP, as this style is a very slow fighting style that overpowers your opponent with your charge attack, and the weapon based combos based attack, and the guard on the smoke can soak so much damage when upgraded to a certain level. And let me just say that there's a reason why they nerfed this in the sequel Kiwami. And I will say that the heat actions that you can get in Beast mode are fucking brutal and literally make you question how the fuck is he still alive. But you know what, I feel dirty. I feel disgusted. All I've been talking about is Kiru in this review, and it's sick, it's sad, it's sickening, because even though it's Kiru, which is it's fucking Kiru of course, we need to talk about the second character, and let's get into it, because after all, Yakuza 0 was built up for this massive reveal. So let's venture into the town of Sotenbori. Ladies and gentlemen, Goro Majima. I feel like I don't even have to mention or say anything about Majima as a character, because I feel like anybody knows who Majima is and how fucking batshit insane he is and how cool he is and just how much of an amazing character he can be portrayed as. And really, honestly, I'm only going to be talking really about the Yakuza 0 Majima and how he became the Mad Dog of Shimano. I would be lying if I said Goro Majima wasn't the reason I bought Yakuza 0. Yakuza 0 Zero is Majima's storyline. I don't care what anybody else thinks, saying, oh, it's Kiru's storyline, that's Majima's. No, it is Goro Majima's storyline, and I just feel like it's his entire game, and he is the main reason why I loved it. Hell, I didn't even get invested into Kiru until like chapter 5 or so, and then Majima's stuff came around, and I just thought, oh yeah, I enjoy his stuff more, and his art is much more compelling and much more sad, and the real reason on why he turns into the Mad Dog is just so fucking depressing and just believable, and I understand it in every single right. And there has never been a character in video gaming where I've felt this guy can end anyone and everyone in the entire world. And his story just kept throwing curveballs and just so much stuff in your face at the second. It didn't feel forced, and you just think that you know what's gonna happen next, when really, no, you don't know what happens next. I never knew what happened next in the story, and to explain the full arc of Majima in Yakuza 0 will take fucking ages, and I just feel like I just shouldn't be doing that today. So yeah, let's take a look at the beginning of the story of the Mad Dog of Shimano, Goro Majima. Unlike Kiru, Majima is a former Yakuza who was eventually let back into Sotombori after betraying his former family and being stripped of the name Yakuza, and eventually became the manager of the biggest club in Sotombori called the Grand. And if he makes 500 million yen, he can give the money to his former family, known as the Shimano family, to return as Yakuza once more. But he is met with an alternative of killing a woman named Makoto Makamura, who is mistaken for a man called Lee, who is her protector, and Majima is very hesitant to kill her and seems to make sure that she is being kept safe. Along the way in the story, Majima develops something from Makoto and drastically changes from him not wanting Makoto around a lot to then protecting her with her life, as he finds out the shocking truth that Makoto and him realize that Makoto is more important than she initially seems. Now I know that doesn't sound like levels of masterpiece storytelling, but really once you start playing this game and understanding the full story in length and not just hearing it from a commentator on YouTube, you can start to understand how deep and how strong of a story this can truly be in the end, and why this is considered the greatest plot in all the Yakuza franchise. But I've yapped on about the story a bit too much as of late, so if you want to know more about it, then go research on the internet, because that's what the internet is for. But the next step for talking about Majima is his combat systems. Like Kiru, he has 3 styles that are unlockable, and a 4th style that can be unlocked through a certain minigame, in this case, cabarets. Fuck is the standard fighting style that Majima has tried to perfect over the years, and is a much smoother and quicker style than Kiru's brawler, but seems to offer much more heat actions and variety in its combat, making it a much more effective combat style for a long-term Yakuza. Slugger is your heavy base style, which is all about using power and heavy defense due to the help of a baseball bat and many other weapons, which are all loaded with their own unique heat action. Is a great style for destroying crowds of enemies and just pretty much showing your outright dominance. And finally, we have the equivalent to Rush. We have Breaker. Breaker as well, oh, fuck it. Roll the clip. This style is just insane. Tons of heat action, just pure destruction when dealing with crowds. Fucking Christ, just look at it. Look how fun that shit is. Oh, easily my favorite style in all of the Yakuza combats. Oh, rolling on. But once the whole game is done and dusted, you think, oh, it's starting to take together and it's all starting to piece together in the end, and it does. And it makes for a very convincing and well compelling story that is easily the best story in the entire Yakuza franchise. Now, it may seem like I'm trying to shoulder Kiru's storyline to the very sidelines, when really, I'm not trying to do that at all. Because honestly, Kiru's storyline is very fucking well done. And for an origin story about one of the greatest fighters in Yakuza history, Sega have made one of the greatest origin stories of a character in Kiru Kazuma. I'm not joking. I'm not joking. I don't know how they've done this. I don't know how you turn a legendary character like the Dragon of Dojima, Kazuma Kiru, and you turn him into an even better character after a prequel story. And honestly, I'm completely baffled. I really am. I mean, they made him a punk-ass kid in this game, and they made you hate his guts from the very beginning. You saw him, and you think, that's the Dragon of Dojima? And then by the end of the game, you saw the eyes. You saw the fear of the eyes of the Dragon of Dojima, and you thought, this guy guy is a fucking fighting legend. They made me dislike the Dragon of Dojima after an amazing playthrough of Kiwami, and then by the end of Yakuza 0, they made me fall in love with that same man again, and I fucking loved it. And they also do this with another character who I absolutely despised at the beginning of the game, to then absolutely fucking love by the end of the game. Daizuku Kuze, or as Kiru and everybody else in the Yakuza community knows him as, everyone who talks about Yakuza 0 or Kiru Storyline as a whole in this game always talks about Kuze. They always do. And there's a good fucking reason for that. He is a well fucking done character, and honestly a character you fucking hate at the very beginning of the game to then fucking really love in the end, just because of the amount of shit that he says and the amount of stuff that he goes through, and plus also the fucking boss music. And generally, Kuze was one of the reasons why I kept enjoying Kiru Story and why I loved it so much. Yes, it wasn't the only reason I loved it, but it was definitely one of the main things that kept me on going throughout the story. And every time you fought Kuze, it felt different. You'd think after fighting him 5 times, it would get all really fast. When no, actually. It actually was very interesting each time I fought him, as you actually had a different mindset for each fight. By the time the first fight is all over, you think, fuck yes, I beat him. And by the last fight, you think to yourself, I'm sorry, Kuze. And the fights just get better and better as they go along. Yes, granted, the third fight does seem a bit off, but I still love it. It's still a badass fight, and it definitely just shows still that side of Kuze that is still hinting, yeah, he might be a bit respectful, but he's still a complete dickhead in the end. And he was one of the main reasons. Sorry! The main reason why I loved Kiru's story. If Kuze wasn't there pushing Kiru to be the best, he would have kept as a punk ass kid, and he probably wouldn't have grown to become the Dragon of Dojima if it wasn't for Kuze. While we're on the topic of bosses, young dear viewer, let me ask you, how many games have you played in your life that have hyped up a villain so much, so big, that when you fight them and get ready to fight them, and then you realize, oh my god, this is an amazing boss fight? How many games, dear viewer, have you had that privilege to experience that same situation? I'll tell you how much. 0. Yakuza 0. But oh my god, the fucking boss fights. These boss fights are like fucking god tier of fucking amazement right here. And yes, I'm using that word amazement because that's the word I have to describe on that front. Holy fucking shit, I love these boss fights. Every single one of them is memorable and kick ass, and I love it. I just fucking love it. I mean, the very first boss fight is of course Kuze with Kiru, and it just gets better and better as it goes along. And like I have to say, the music each time with these fucking boss fights, and yes, I mentioned the music again, because the music helps so fucking much, especially with the Dojima lieutenants fighting them in their boss fights, and especially the final boss fight with Kiru and Majima are just fucking amazing. And the music ascends with the boss fights themselves, and it's just, they all have their very unique ways of taking them down, and I fucking love them. And all one of them has QTEs, and in this game, along with all the other Yakuza games, it's fucking done well, and it actually makes the boss fights more interesting and much more unique in their own way, and makes it stand apart from all the other things in the game. And as you can guess, some boss fights are much better than others, like most games, to be honest, because of the dynamic controls that some of them come with. My favorite is especially Kuze the 4th time you fight him round, and especially the end boss fight with Kiru. That is fucking fantastic. And I've never seen a game where the boss fights are so consistent and there's not one that doesn't stand out. Like seriously, there is not one boss fight I didn't like or disliked in the least. The first boss fight is not meant to be the greatest boss fight. It's not even meant to be remotely amazing, but yet It is. The first boss fight with Kuze is seriously a fucking amazing boss fight. The build up to it is fucking great. It's just fucking fantastic and I love it. And most importantly, the soundtrack. I've never talked about how good a soundtrack can affect the game. It's the same with films really. A lot of soundtracks aren't that memorable and that kind of affects them in that way. Yeah, the content might be good, but the soundtrack is not present to help the moment drive out the point. And this is exact proof on what that is, because honestly I've never seen a game with an amazing soundtrack before in a while, because it's just, there's not a lot of good soundtracks out there for games. Kuze's boss fights would not be amazing if it wasn't for his badass song. The final boss fight would not be amazing if it wasn't for the kick-ass theme in the end. Certain moments in the game would not have been as impactful if it wasn't for the soundtrack. A soundtrack can really help. And it's honestly one of the reasons why I consider Yakuza 0 to be one of my favourite soundtracks of all time, and would definitely be in the top 5 of a soundtrack if I had to make a list, and is probably the best soundtrack in Yakuza, but yet again that is something to properly be discussed and to debate over. I still think the one that steals the spotlight in Yakuza 0 is of course Goro Majima, so let's just stop for a minute and stop praising one legend, but let's instead go praise another. I just feel like, and this is my opinion by the way, Majima just steals the spotlight of the entire game, as his journey throughout the entire game is just, well, fuck. There's just too much to even talk about in this review, as there is just so much weight to Majima's story, so many twists and turns. You can feel Majima's ongoing conflict, and it's honestly one of the most gripping storylines I've ever played. This kind of all helps build towards the final end goal, which is Majima turning into the Mad Dog of Shimano, which at the end of the game is very understandable considering all the hell he has went through. One curveball in the end is that they completely subvert your expectations. You think, oh, he's gone through all this hell, so this is why he's going to turn into this insane motherfucker. But no, I didn't expect it at all, and yet I still think it's a amazing, understandable reason for why he is turned into this psychotic, insane motherfucker. You wanna know what? Majima and Makoto has been the only relationship in a video game where I've actually really loved and that never felt forced at all, because I love how genuine it felt from the very beginning, from Majima not wanting anything to do with Makoto, but then slowly but surely getting to the point of him putting himself on the line just for Makoto because he loves her. Majima does reach his boiling point towards that end where shit hits the fan big time, and honestly the best moment in the game. This fight right here needs to be done in Mad Dog style. This moment right here, yes, you dear viewer, do it, and do it Mad Doggy style. Fuck, that sounded better in my head. Okay, I feel like I have been praising this game quite a bit in this review, and I kind of feel like I have to be a bit more fair with the whole negative stuff going around. There are only two things. Yeah, they are so minimal that it's not even worth talking about them, but I still kind of have to talk about them because I have to be fair on every right here. And the first thing I really had a problem was the random fights in the streets happening way too often. I really got annoyed and frustrated with the amount of times I got stopped by random enemies in the street whenever I was going to advance in the story, or whether I wanted to go to a certain building or not. Honestly, I found it okay with Kiru afterwards, as I got the money confetti ability, which allows you to throw money in the street to distract enemies and other civilians around you, but I was waiting for Majima's version of this ability, so I kept playing in vain, hoping I would find it, but I never did. I kept getting stopped by enemies 1 minute after the other, and honestly, I got really fucking pissed off by it, and yeah, it really got on my nerves. And yes, before you say anything, I know you can unlock it by talking to a certain individual near the Cabaret Grand, but I didn't know that at the time when I was playing the story, and there is no hints or little tips in the menus to even tell you how to unlock the same ability for Majima, and I didn't actually unlock it until after I completed the story. The second negative I have to say was the still cutscenes. Now, I ain't talking about the cutscenes that are in the game with little movement with voice acting, or even the read-only cutscenes. I actually really like those. No, I'm talking about the cutscenes that have this weird filter on them and have full voice acting in them, but yet for some reason, the footage shown in the cutscenes have no movement whatsoever, and literally is a still image of the character, with the background still moving normally, but not the character's mouths and all that. And I honestly find it the weakest aspect of Yakuza 0. And I know it's just cutscenes, right? But still, these cutscenes are just stupid on every single level in my opinion. They just suck. Yakuza 0 just wants to nail everything in terms of video game storyline and development and of how important each side character feels, and they all contribute something to the story, and there's reasoning behind their involvement in each protagonist's stories. I was very interested to know what the whole character arc of Nishiki was going to be all about. I thought his story in Kiwami was heartbreaking on its own, and didn't think it could be worked on and be more heartbreaking, but this game does that too! Fuck's sake, man. Oh, this game fucking rocks! I mean, imagine watching your best friend that is practically your brother in arms getting hunted down by an army of people while there is you standing there and unable to do anything because honestly it puts you in a terrible spot. That's Nishiki's whole dilemma in this game with Kiru. It's just too amazing and beautiful to see how much Nishiki cares about Kiru, even to the point where Nishiki wanted to shoot Kiru in the middle of nowhere, gun point blank, just so he wouldn't have to suffer. It's wow. Karaoke is a thing in this game, and I regret nothing when I say that it's the single greatest minigame I've ever played in a video game. No, that's kind of all I have to say. Karaoke is fucking awesome, and it's one of the best minigames ever just made. That's just another good thing I had to say. But anyway, moving on. Majima is now the full Mad Dog persona we all know and love, and has cleaned up all his loose ends with all the characters in the game, including Sagawa and most importantly Makoto, which honestly really depresses me that Majima could not get Makoto, but still it is a great way to start the legend of the Mad Dog. Kiru, I personally believe, was a harder character end goal due to what you needed to do in the last chapter to help him become the badass stoic dragon of Dojima he will play in the future Yakuza games. Kiru throughout the entire game tried to follow in the steps of others, tried to be like other characters around him, but in his ending, he wants to take his own path, make decisions based on what he thinks is right, and as he vaguely puts it, find my own way as a Yakuza. This complete change is fantastic for the new Dragon of Dojima, because the Dragon of Dojima in the future Yakuza games, he does his things own way and he doesn't listen to other people because he truly believes he wants to do it his way, and if it fucks up, it's his own doing and he wants to live that way as a Yakuza. And this is a great start for the Dragon of Dojima for the years to come. I just think it's an absolute superb ending to it all. You know what? This is a fantastic game with so much development, stakes and all that, but above all else, it's still a fun game, and I feel like that's the one thing that matters to most people, and it damn well succeeds on that. Yakuza 0 is a perfectly constructed origin story which makes you care about all the characters around you in your own way, while also giving you a story that is engaging in every way possible, and only gets better as you go along. But how do you cap it off, this masterpiece of a game, with a bang? Oh, I don't know, but surprise, surprise, they did it again. They managed to give you an ending that made you smile with joy and just laughed your ass off in the end. And then they would come back playing it thinking, yeah, I want to come back to it and see where this all leads up to and what is next for these characters. And you can easily tell what is next for these two characters in this one cutscene. And it's easily one of the best endings to a game I've ever played. And that, along with so many other reasons, is why Yakuza 0 may just be remembered in the video game history books forever.
Yo. Kiru-chan!
That was Yakuza 0 for you, one of my favourite games of all time, and honestly, pick it up guys if you're wondering why I love this franchise so much and you're still thinking, I'm trying to comprehend why this is such a good series, get into Yakuza 0. But anyway, I will see you all in the next Gamessnia show. This is Gamessnia signing out and signing off.